It's the outer, just the outer rim. A sector is the actual piece of pie or the piece of pizza. It's the whole section that you are cutting out of the circle. Okay, that's what a sector is. It says it's a region bounded by two radii, because notice we have a radius here and a radius here. And the intercepted arc, the arc that's on the outside. Now what they're going to ask us to do is find the area of a sector of a circle. We've done the area of a full circle, which was pi times radius squared. But notice we don't have a full circle anymore. We have a fraction of that circle. So what we do to make the area formula is we take the full area of the circle and multiply it by the fraction that we have. And one way we know to form a fraction is because a circle has a total of 360 degrees. If we know how many of those degrees we're covering, we can do it. Okay, we'll do an example of this, but this is the formula you want to write down in your notes. The area of a sector of a circle is pi times radius squared times the degrees measure of your arc divided by 360. And I have an example down here for us to go ahead and use. If we wanted the area of that shaded portion of the circle, we start by doing pi times radius squared. Now the radius for this circle is 10. We're going to do pi times 10 squared. Then we need to form a fraction. Our arc measure, the measure of our arc here was 94 degrees out of 360. So that part, always say this, it's always over 360, it's always pi. The only numbers that will change when you're doing this is your radius, depending on your question, and your arc measure, depending on your question. You want to do the best you can. There's two ways they ask for the answer. Sometimes they want it just in terms of pi. So you would just leave pi there and calculate everything else. The way I would calculate this is, remember 10 squared is 10 times 10. So I would square my 10 or do 10 times 10. Then I would multiply by 94 and divide by 360, because really the fraction 94 over 360 means 94 divided by 360. So if you are intimidated by fractions, that's how you should calculate it. You multiply by the top and then divide by the number on the bottom. So far I have 10 times 10 would give me 100 times 94 is 9,400 divided by 360, and I get 26.1 continuous pi. Now if they wanted this in terms of pi, what you do when it says in terms of pi is you just leave pi there so that someone else can multiply it later. If they want the final answer, you use your calculator and you leave this number, leave the 26.11111, and then hit times pi. You should have a pi button on your calculator. You can use 3.14, but depending on the question, it may put you off a little bit because 3.14 is a rounded version of pi. Okay, and when I do that, I get 82.03. So my answer in terms of pi was 26.1 pi, but my final answer rounded was 82.03. So again, in terms of pi, you multiply everything, calculate everything but pi, and if they want the final answer, you go ahead and multiply that by pi using a calculator. All right, here, oh, my circle moved, it looks like. Find the area of the shaded sector. Give your answer in terms of pi and as a decimal rounded to the nearest hundredth. So again, we're going to practice our skills there. So I would look in my notes and go, okay, what is the formula for the area of a sector of a circle? Well, it's pi times radius squared times the arc measure divided by 360. I put in the information I have. The radius is 3 meters. So I have pi times 3 squared. And my arc measure is the same as the measure of my angle. So it would be 90 degrees over 360. Let's calculate that. Now it wants one answer in terms of pi. So the first one, just leave pi alone. Calculate everything else. So remember, 3 squared means 3 times 3. Then you're going to multiply by 90 and divide by 360. Leave the pi alone. Don't calculate it. Start from this part and do 3 squared. So 3 times 3 is 9. Times 90 is 810. Divided by 360. That gives me 2.25, and I still have the pi there. I haven't multiplied by pi yet. So this would be my answer in terms of pi, would be 2.25 pi. Okay, then they also want a decimal rounded to the nearest tenth. So when you find that answer, you just take out your calculator and you take your 2.25 times pi and go ahead and multiply it by pi. And we get 7.068583, and it goes on from there. They wanted round us to the nearest hundredth. We have tenths. Hundredths is 2 places after the decimal. Look to the next one. 8 is larger than 5, so it makes us round up to 7.07. So here is our answer in terms of pi. Again, that's calculating everything but pi and just leaving the pi on the end. And here is our answer in decimal form. And to do that, you calculate everything and multiply by pi.